Comes, plural comites, is the Latin word for companion, either individually or as a member of a collective known as comitatus, especially the suite of a magnate, in some cases large or formal enough to have a specific name, such as a cohors amicorum. The word comes derives from com, with, plus ia, go, ancient Roman religion. Comes was a common epithet or title, added to the name for a hero or a divinity, as a way to mark a relationship with another divinity. On Constantine I's coinage, the emperor is declared comes to sol invictus, the unconquered sun, conceived of as a god. Imperially bestowed court titles and various offices of comites. Historically more significant, comes became a secular title given to trusted courtiers and others, as a mark of imperial confidence. It developed into a formal rank, deriving from the companions of Alexander the Great, and rather equivalent to the Hellenistic philos or the paladin title of a Holy Roman Empire knight and a papal official. Thus the title was retained when one was appointed, often promoted, to a post away from court, often in the field or provincial administration. Next, it seemed logical to link it to specific charges calling for an incumbent of high rank, and even to make it part of the official title. As the imperial court grew in size and assimilated to itself all political influence, the emperors established a casual practice of appointing loyal servants to various posts. This had already been done elsewhere, as with the prefect of the Praetorian Guard and the Amici Principus. As the imperial system expanded, however, new offices were needed and decentralization demanded change. The result was the creation of the rank of comes. The comites became leading officials of the later Roman Empire. They wielded posts of every description, from the army to the civil service, while never surrendering their direct links and access to the emperors. Constantine took the final step of certifying the posts, as comites provinciarum, counts of the provinces, who were sent out alongside vicars in their dioceses so that they were permanent fixtures of imperial government. They are listed in full for the beginning of the 5th century in the Notitia Dignitatum, and a schematic map of comital military posts in English translation is available at the Frisian Project. At later dates, additional posts have been created. The following are examples of the various types of comites. At court or in the imperial domain, several of the major departments of an imperial court and household had a chief-styled comes, with an officium quite similar to that of a governor. These included comes dispositionum, a deputy to the very powerful magister officiorum, responsible for organizing the imperial calendar and preparing the correspondence for distribution to the proper offices for transcription. Comes domesticorum, of the illustris head of the domestici, a corps of bodyguards of the emperor who were stationed in the imperial palace. There were two of these comital commanders, for the horse viz. Foot units. Comes privatae largitionis, keeper of the privy purse, answerable and subordinate to the comes rerum privatarum. Comes rerum privatarum, powerful imperial officer responsible for the private estates or holdings of the emperor and his family. He maintained the properties and collected all monies from rent, of which most went to the public funds and some to the privy purse administered by the comes privatae largitionis. Comes sacrarum largitionum, of the illustris master of the sacred largicer, who operated the imperial finances. He controlled all of the mints, was in chief of a long list of officials who collected senatorial taxes, custom duties and some land taxes, was also responsible for the yields of the mines, provided budgets for the civil service and armies and supplied all uniforms. His competence also included several minor comites. Comes auri, gold count. Comes sacra vestis, master of the wardrobe of the emperor. 3 regional comites largitionum, for Italy, Africa, Illyricum. Comes commerciarum, for Illyricum. Comes metallorum per Illyricum, responsible for the region's gold mines. Exceptionally, a gubernatorial position was styled comes. comes Orientis, actually one of the Vocarii. This count had control over the large and strategically important imperial diocese of the East, supervising the governors of this major group of provinces, but was himself under supervision of the Praefectus Praetorio Orientis. Furthermore, some less important section chiefs under the authority of otherwise styled, high-ranking territorial officials could be styled comes, e.g., under the Praefectus Urbis of Rome were a comes Formarum, a comes Riparum e Alvae Tiberis e Clacarum and a comes Portus. The title comes consistorianus indicated the comites who advised the emperor in his council for official matters, whether on an occasional basis, ex officio or, in the case of his ancestor, as a distinct job. Comes re militaris. These comites held military appointments, higher than dux, but below magister peditum, magister equitum. They were the superiors of a series of military posts, each commanded by a praepositus limitis, and, or unit commanders, such as tribunes of cohorts, alii, numeri, in the Eastern Empire even legions. The Notitia Dignitatum mentions 6 such positions, of the rank Verspectabilis, in the Western Empire and 2 in the Eastern Empire. Comes Egyptia, comes Isori, comes Africa, count in charge of the defense of Rome and Africa. Comes Argentoratensis, count in charge of the defense of part of Gaul. Comes Avernorum, count in charge of the defense of part of Gaul. Comes Britanniarum, count in charge of defense of Rome and Britain. This post presumably expired around AD 410, when the last Roman troops left Britain. Comes Littrus Saxonus Hyper Britannium, comes Hispaniarum, count in charge of the defense of Rome and Iberia. As the number of comites grew, the rank was devalued. This led to the introduction of the notion of classes of comites, first, second and third orders. Horse guards corps of comites. The comites dominorum nostrorum were a mounted imperial bodyguard during Diocletian's Tetrarchy. Medieval usages. Gothic comites. The Goths that ruled Spain and Italy followed the tradition of the Romans in giving the title of count to the diverse heads of the departments of the royal household. Comes Cubiculariorum, count in charge of the chamberlains. Comes Scanciorum, count in charge of the cupbearers. Comes Stabulorum, count in charge of the equerries and stables. Comes Notariorum, count in charge of the chancery. Comes Thesaurorum, count in charge of the officers of the treasury, etc. Frankish Geograph. The Frankish kings of the Merovingian dynasty retained a good deal of the Roman system of administration, including the title comes, which preserved its original meaning, a companion of the king, a royal servant of high rank. Under the early Frankish kings, some comites did not exercise any definite functions, they were merely attached to the king's person and executed his orders. Others filled the highest offices, e.g., the comes palatii and comes stabuli. The kingdom was divided for administrative purposes into small areas called pagi, corresponding generally to the Roman civitas. At the head of the pagus was the comes, corresponding to the German Graf. The comes was appointed by the king and removable at his pleasure, and was chosen originally from all classes, sometimes from enfranchised serfs. His essential functions were judicial and executive, and in documents he is often described as the king's agent or royal judge. As the delegate of the executive power, he had the right to military command in the king's name, and to take all the measures necessary for the preservation of the peace, i.e., to exercise the royal ban. He was at once public prosecutor and judge, was responsible for the execution of the sentences of the courts, and as the king's representative exercised the royal right of protection over churches, widows, orphans and the like. He enjoyed a triple wergeld, but had no definite salary, being remunerated by the receipt of certain revenues, a system which contained the germs of discord, on account of the confusion of his public and private duties. The Anglo-Saxon geriphoor, however, meaning illustrious chief, has apparently, according to philologists, no connection with the German Graf, which originally meant servant. It is the more curious that the geriphoor should end as a subservient reeve, the Graf as a noble count. Feudalism. In the feudal tradition, Latin was often used, especially in legal documents, as official language. So the rendering in Latin was no less important than the original in the spoken vernacular. Thus, comes has been used as the Latin equivalent of all titles of comital rank, whether containing count. Similarly, it is part of the rendering of derived lower titles containing such term, notably vice comes for viscount and burgher comes for burgrave.